Faithfully delivering value and interpreting good books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally talking books. Today, the book we're interpreting for you is The King of Waltz. In the music world, there are two Johann Strauss, their father and son, and both are famous worldwide for creating waltzes. The protagonist of this book is the son, Johann Strauss II, who was a renowned Austrian composer, conductor, violinist, and pianist. He created nearly 500 works in his lifetime, including waltzes like The Blue Danube and Voices of Spring, which helped him surpass his father and establish himself as the king of waltz. Just now, at the beginning, what you heard was the famous waltz, The Blue Danube. Before interpreting this book, we need to understand what a waltz is. Waltz, also known as valse, is a dance music in triple meter, originating from Austrian folk traditions. It later became popular at social balls in Vienna and swept across Europe. When dancing, a pair of partners needs to rotate while also revolving around the ballroom, just like the Earth rotates while revolving around the sun. Although the waltz as an ancient dance accompaniment wasn't invented by Johann Strauss II, and other forms like minuets and symphonies were popular at the same time, he brought a waltz craze to Vienna with his outstanding compositions, and even all of Europe danced to his waltzes. The author of this book is a renowned Austrian musicologist and theater scholar. Marcel Prowy is currently employed at the Vienna Conservatory. Prowy spent 50 years collecting and organizing a vast amount of first-hand materials about Johann Strauss II. Prowy's grandparents had interactions with Johann II, so he learned many stories that others couldn't know. This adds much color to the book. What's even more rare is that Prowy always opposed idolizing historical figures. Therefore, in writing this book, he strives to restore a real and vivid Johann Strauss II for people. Next, I'll divide it into 5 parts to interpret Johann Strauss II's life for you. The first part is about Johann II's youthful years of secretly learning the piano. The second part is his debut performance and the 6 years of father-son conflict. The third part is fame, wealth, and love, all flourishing, belonging to the heyday of Johann Strauss II, the king of waltz. The fourth part is the era of operetta, along with his marriage farce. The fifth part is his later life, which is also his exit as the king of waltz. Let's start with Johann Strauss II's youthful years of secretly learning the piano. To understand his upbringing, we must first talk about his father.
Johann Strauss Sr.
Johann Strauss Sr. was a self-taught musician, living in the same era as Beethoven and Haydn, all famous musicians in Vienna in the first half of the 19th century. Sr. came from humble beginnings but had good musical talent and a smart business mind. Through forming bands, composing, and performing, he gradually became a famous music manager, owning an orchestra with 200 musicians. In his youth, he was invited to conduct the Emperor's Ball. Throughout his life, he was diligent and prolific, writing over 150 waltzes and more than a dozen other works, with the most classic being his Radetzky March. Every year, the Vienna New Year's concert ends with this piece. However, his greatest contribution was promoting waltzes from Vienna to all of Europe, establishing Vienna as the city of waltzes, a status that remains unchanged to this day. In 1825, at age 21, Sr. fell in love with the daughter of a beer hall owner who was 2 years older than him, Anna. They soon married due to pregnancy, and on October 25th of that year gave birth to their first child, whom they also named Johann Strauss. In Europe at that time, it was very common for the firstborn son to inherit the father's or ancestor's name, seen as a continuation of family glory and a blessing for the newborn. A few years later, Johann II welcomed 2 younger brothers and 2 younger sisters. Thanks to Sr's status and fame, the family of 7 lived in a noble community in Vienna, and the Strauss boys all inherited their father's musical talent to some extent. Johann II's 2 younger brothers also became composers and conductors, but Johann II achieved the highest in the music field, due to his father's profession. Johann II loved music from a young age and was determined to follow in his father's footsteps to become a professional musician. And he was exposed to piano and composition at a very young age, composing his first waltz at age 6, which his mother recorded for him from memory. It is said that this piece was somewhat clumsy and stiff, yet it sparkled with the brilliance of genius. Unfortunately, the score is now lost, and we couldn't witness its charm. But Father Johann Strauss Sr. never wanted his son to pursue a career in music from the start. Because being a professional musician is hard work with unstable income and little social status. Therefore, he hoped his son would become a banker. He confiscated young Johann's violin and even locked the family piano. But his soft-hearted mother would secretly unlock the piano when Senior went out, let her son practice, and even bought him a violin.
Unfortunately, Senior eventually found out, leading to an inevitable fierce quarrel at home.
From then on, young Johann had to be extra careful to avoid any slip-ups. However, this trouble didn't last long. When Johann was 9, his philandering father had an affair and openly left home to live with his lover, so no one stopped young Johann from pursuing music. Deeply hurt by the marriage, his mother focused entirely on nurturing her son's music career. This move might have carried a hint of revenge from his mother, since Senior least wanted his sons to follow in his footsteps. His mother used her savings to fund Johann's music studies and sought out teachers for him everywhere.
Young Johann studied successively under violinists, musicians Fries, Amaze, and the outstanding composer-conductor.
Thanks to the guidance of Joseph Drexler and other renowned teachers, along with his talent and passion, Johann in his teens had already acquired solid musical foundations and advanced composition skills. Young Johann often read newspaper reports about his famous musician father. Though his father betrayed their family, Johann's admiration for his musical achievements never wavered. He dreamed of having his own orchestra like his father, composing dance music, and conducting his musicians in Vienna's entertainment venues. But this all required city government approval first. Words in Vienna's first place. In 1844, 18-year-old Johann submitted an application to the city government stating, after graduating from a 4-year humanities program and attending Polytechnic School for 2 years, I've performed violin at Palace Square, churches, and private groups. I wish to lead a band of 12 to 15 members to perform entertaining music, opera excerpts, and concerts in restaurants and taverns. Show. A month later, his application was approved, and a kind-hearted city official even managed to help young Johann bypass the procedure of seeking his father's consent. The official said that since this profession is freelance, father's consent isn't required regardless of age. With the permit in hand, young Johann was about to step onto his own stage, and the prelude to the father-son battle thus began. Young Johann wanted to officially perform a music ball and needed 3 key elements: a performance permit, his own band, and a venue. He had already obtained the government's performance permit, and hiring musicians to form a band wasn't difficult either. Now, I think in Vienna, there was a Belgrade City Hotel where unemployed musicians gathered every Monday, waiting to be selected by band conductors and theater managers. In early October 1844, the fledgling young Johann signed contracts with 24 musicians at once. In the following weeks, he worked day and night composing, conducting the band in rehearsals, and preparing for the performance. Everything was ready, but the venue became a problem. Well, at that time, Johann Sr.'s reputation was at its peak, and he had influence in Vienna's music circles. He deliberately suppressed his son's music career and caused trouble. This resulted in almost no restaurant or tavern owners willing to take the risk of providing a venue for young Johann. And finally, an amusement park named Dahmeyer agreed to provide a venue. The amusement park owner saw the commercial value in the Strauss father-son conflict and wanted to use this gimmick to compete with them. The hall at Dahmeyer wasn't large, only able to accommodate 600 people. Boston, however, on October 15, 1844, over 1,000 people came to attend young Johann's debut, making the hall extremely crowded, even making it difficult to dance. So,
Of course, among the attendees, besides music lovers, there were more onlookers and people sent by Senior to cause trouble.
it turned out that stories of the Strauss father-son conflict were circulating throughout Vienna, with people discussing after meals how the father threatened and bribed venue owners not to provide space for his son. No. Rumorous and speculative that the son was trying to poach his father's musicians. In short, more people came to the ball to watch the spectacle, but young Johann surprised everyone with his music. Young Johann played the violin at times, conducted his own composition Poems of the Heart Waltz at others, and even repeated it 19 times at the audience's request.
Finally, he paid tribute to his father by performing his newly published waltz, Lorelei-Reinklang, and the audience was ecstatic with enthusiasm, cheering wildly.
The next day, major newspapers covered this grand event. It can be said that from this day on, there were two musician Johann Strausses in the hearts of Viennese people. But it turned out that SR's vast network and influence still hindered young Johann's music career. Although young Johann gained public attention thanks to his father's fame and became an instant hit at his debut, few entertainment venue owners dared to hire him, and the conflict between father and son intensified. I won more and 5. When young Johann performed scores exclusively licensed to Senior called the police, trying to have his son summoned. Both father and son resorted to despicable means, like bribing journalists to slander each other in a public opinion war. But young Johann was clever. He knew that Senior's supporters were mainly older Vienna who had witnessed his rise. Innovative and forward-thinking, therefore, young Johann's strategy was not to win over yesterday's audience, but to cultivate tomorrow's audience. Tomorrow's audience meant the youth, especially the growing nationalist youth, among various ethnic groups. He performed in restaurants frequented by these youth and created the vibrant, independent-spirited waltz, the youth of Vienna, who became his loyal followers. After gaining fame in Vienna, young Johann also began touring like his father. Whether in Hungary or Serbia, his music was wildly popular with locals, sailing smoothly, one might say. Duke Alexander of Serbia even presented him with an expensive pocket watch engraved with the ducal crest to show his affection. Just as young Johann was reveling in his achievements abroad, the March Revolution arrived, a bourgeois democratic revolution of the Austrian people.
On March 11, 1848, the masses in Vienna held a demonstration that quickly escalated into an armed uprising.
People shouted, "We want freedom, happiness, and dignity!" Slogans like, "Down with Metternich, implement constitutional government." Metternich was then Chancellor of the Austrian Empire and representative of European royalists. Emerging bourgeois merchants and nationalists hoped to overthrow the monarchy. Young workers hoped to weaken the feudal aristocracy's power. The revolution stirred all Austrians fighting for freedom, including young Johann. When the revolution was suppressed, he composed works like Revolution Victory March and Song of Freedom Waltz, which were welcomed by revolutionary youth. Young Johann also joined the National Guard and was assigned to guard the district headquarters. However, young Johann was timid by nature and didn't have grand revolutionary ideals.
Revolution.
For him, it was more like a trend that young people were chasing.
After just a few hours on guard duty, he dropped his gun and ran away.
In complete contrast, old Johann was a staunch royalist, with conservatism deep in his bones. As a conductor, he always passionately directed orchestras in playing the Emperor's hymn. It can be said the conflicts between father and son had become irreconcilable. On September 25th, 1849, old Johann suddenly passed away, abruptly ending the father-son battle. This musician, who had just turned 45, contracted scarlet fever from travel fatigue. On his death night, his longtime lover left with their illegitimate child. When his legal wife and children rushed to mourn, they only found old Johann lying alone in bed. What did young Johann feel about his father's death? We cannot know for sure. His father was absent during his upbringing. He knew well that his father had betrayed the family and hindered his music career, yet he always regarded him as a role model. He took over his father's orchestra. 100,000 Viennese attended old Johann's funeral to honor this master musician. Old Johann had always aimed to elevate waltzes beyond dance accompaniment to standalone light music appreciation, but he never achieved this goal in his lifetime. It was his son, Johann Strauss II, who accomplished this goal. With his father's passing, Johann Strauss II was now the only Johann Strauss. His golden age was about to begin. Freed from paternal suppression, his music career advanced rapidly. Starting in 1853, he officially became the music director of court balls, conducting at high-level imperial dances, an immense honor. The fourth part is the era of operetta and his marriage farce. The fifth part is his later life and his exit as the King of Waltz. Let's start with Johann Strauss II's youthful years of secretly learning the piano. To understand his upbringing, we must first talk about his father, Johann Strauss Sr. Johann Strauss Sr. was a self-taught musician living in the same era as Beethoven and Haydn, all famous musicians in Vienna in the first half of the 19th century. Sr. came from humble beginnings but had good musical talent and a smart business mind. Through forming bands, composing, and performing, he gradually became a famous music manager, owning an orchestra with 200 musicians. In his youth, he was invited to conduct the Emperor's Ball. Throughout his life, he was diligent and prolific, writing over 150 waltzes and more than a dozen other works, with the most classic being his Radetzky March. And now, every year, the Vienna New Year's concert ends with this piece. However, his greatest contribution was promoting waltzes from Vienna to all of Europe, establishing Vienna as the city of waltzes, a status that remains unchanged to this day. In 1825, at age 21, Sr. fell in love with the daughter of a beer hall owner who was 2 years older than him. They soon married due to pregnancy, and on October 25th of that year, gave birth to their first child, whom they also named Johann Strauss. In Europe at that time, it was very common for the firstborn son to inherit the father's or ancestor's name, seen as a continuation of family glory and a blessing for the newborn. A few years later, Johann II welcomed 2 younger brothers and 2 younger sisters. Thanks to Sr's status and fame, the family of 7 lived in a noble community in Vienna, and the Strauss boys all inherited their father's musical talent to some extent. Johann II's 2 younger brothers also became composers and conductors, but Johann II achieved the highest in the music field due to his father's profession. Johann II loved music from a young age and was determined to follow in his father's footsteps to become a professional musician. And he was exposed to piano and composition at a very young age, composing his first waltz at age 6, which his mother recorded for him from memory. Naturally, Johann Strauss II was among these people. At the Baron's party, Johann met the charming Henriette, and they fell in love at first sight. At this time, Johann was 37, and Henriette was 44. Later, the Baron generously gave Henriette a sum of money as a farewell gift to end their relationship. And although Henriette's past was controversial, after marriage she proved to be a competent wife. Domestically, she managed the household efficiently, and externally, she assisted Johann with performance affairs, acting like a manager, friend, and she gave Johann a stable family life, which greatly helped him focus on composing. In the 4th year of their marriage, in 1866, Johann successfully created his greatest work in his artistic career. By the beautiful Blue Danube, this piece features D major as its main melody and has the typical structure of a Viennese waltz, consisting of an introduction, 5 small waltzes, and a coda.
At the start of the introduction, the tremolo, gently played by the violin, is like dawn breaking through the river mist, awakening the sleeping earth. It tells of shimmering sunlight on the blue river, the full moon, and the ancient imperial capital by the beautiful Danube.
In 1867, the Second World's Fair was held in Paris, and Johann gained great fame at the fair's concert. The local newspaper Le Figaro highly praised this Viennese music master and even hosted a grand reception for him. Nearly all of Paris's cultural elite attended the Blue Danube performance, and with Johann's tour, it conquered Paris, London, China, and America, becoming a symbol of Viennese music. Publishers rushed to print, sending tens of thousands of scores worldwide. How successful was this waltz? Austrian people once treated this song as a national anthem, and to this day, it remains a staple at the Vienna New Year's concert. And this, at the time, the popular cartoon Tom and Jerry also featured a melody from the Blue Danube. So, from 1860 to 1870, this decade was Johann's famous period of abundant waltzes. And besides the renowned Blue Danube, he also created classics like Tales from the Vienna Woods and Artist's Life, and invitations from around the world kept him very busy. That's as he enlisted his 2 younger brothers, who were also musicians, to substitute for him in conducting less important concerts. So, although many concert flyers advertised Strauss conducting, what often appeared was his brother Joseph or Edward Strauss, leaving organizers deeply dissatisfied, yet helpless. Initially, the Strauss brothers' tricks displeased audiences, but over time people grew accustomed and showed tolerance. In 1870, young Johann's mother and brother Joseph passed away successively. Facing immense grief from losing 2 loved ones, young Johann chose escape. By then, he was truly the king of waltz. The Blue Danube had elevated him to world-renowned maestro status. Yet he handed leadership of the Strauss Orchestra to his youngest brother. Edward began avoiding ball performances and conducting duties, rarely accepting time-sensitive commissions, instead focusing creativity on the rising genre of operetta. Operetta refers to short staged musicals with simple, accessible plots, distinct from serious grand opera. Since the mid-19th century, operetta became independent with romantic, sentimental stories featuring orchestral songs and dances beloved by Vienna citizens. In 1871, young Johann first attempted composing an operetta, Indigo. Adapted from 1001 Nights' Tales, like Ali Baba, Indigo premiered to sold-out shows and headlines, with Johann receiving thunderous applause upon returning to conduct. And so what? Undoable. So critics praised the music's imaginative flair, like the Donkey Seller and Ali Baba duet, where instruments cleverly mimicked braying sounds. But this work was actually immature. Critics blamed script issues for awkward passages while ignoring musical flaws, since the adapter wasn't prominent. Despite imperfections, the operetta ran 70 consecutive shows in Austria-Hungary and Germany, earning substantial profits. May 9, 1873, became known as Black Friday.
The 4th part is the era of operetta and his marriage farce.
The 5th part is his later life and his exit as the King of Waltz. Let's start with Johann Strauss II's youthful years of secretly learning piano. To understand his upbringing, we must first discuss his father. Johann Strauss Sr. was a self-taught musician, contemporary with Beethoven and Haydn, all famous musicians in early 19th century Vienna. Sr. came from humble origins but possessed musical talent and sharp business acumen. Through forming bands, composing, and performing, he gradually became a renowned music manager, leading an orchestra of 200 musicians, and in his youth he was invited to conduct the emperor's balls. Throughout his life, he was diligent and prolific, composing over 150 waltzes and dozens of other works, most famously the Radetzky March. Each year, the Vienna New Year's concert concludes with this piece. However, his greatest contribution was promoting waltzes from Vienna throughout Europe, establishing Vienna as the waltz capital, a status unchanged today. In 1825, 21-year-old senior fell in love with a beer hall owner's daughter, 2 years his senior. Anna, they soon married due to pregnancy, and on October 25th, welcomed their first child, also named Johann Strauss. In Europe, then, firstborn sons commonly inherited their father's name, seen as continuing family honor and blessing the newborn. Over the following years, Johann II gained 2 younger brothers and 2 sisters. Thanks to Sina's status, the family lived in Vienna's noble district, with all Strauss boys inheriting musical talent. Johann II's brothers became composers and conductors, but Johann II achieved most in music due to his father's influence. Johann II loved music from childhood, determined to become a professional musician like his father. Exposed early to piano and composition, he wrote his first waltz at 6, recorded by his mother from memory. As for how they met, the official story is that after his wife's death, young Johann moved to the Victoria Hotel to avoid painful memories. Then, Proch brought Lily for an audition. Johann didn't hire her, but married her instead. But many Viennese scoffed at this, claiming they'd known Lily before Henriette's death. Lily was 25 years younger than Johann, blonde, blue-eyed, with ankle-length hair, minimal singing talent, no career, and unlike Henriette, offered no help managing his life or music affairs. From the wedding onward, Johann's life filled with pointless arguments. Soon, news of Lily's affair spread everywhere, with only Johann deliberately avoiding it and turning a deaf ear. Johann's family crisis became common knowledge throughout Vienna. That December, Johann's operetta Blindekuhl Hide and Seek premiered. When the song reached the line, "This woman is simply my torment," the audience couldn't help but chuckle knowingly. The strained family relationships caused Johann immense mental pressure. He frequently traveled abroad for performances, channeling all energy into music composition to escape marital problems. The famous Voices of Spring waltz was composed during his stay in Budapest, Hungary, at an 1883 dinner party. Johann shared the table with 71-year-old pianist Franz Liszt. They admired each other, and Johann's father had also been close friends with Liszt. During the dinner, Liszt and the hostess played a duet for entertainment. Johann transformed that joyful experience into music. Thus, the famous Voices of Spring waltz was born. Its splendid, agile melody bursts like spring's breath, overflowing with youthful energy, vividly depicting Earth's revival. Ice melting, life emerging, like a richly colored oil painting. This piece differs radically from Strauss's other waltzes, not dance accompaniment but pure stage performance music, with free-flowing rhythm, vivid melodies, and strong artistic appeal. It stands as concert music. At this year's Beijing Winter Olympics opening ceremony, Voices of Spring featured as entrance music. In 1883, the year Voices of Spring debuted, Johann and Lily's 5-year marriage ended. The civil court announced their formal divorce.
That same year, Johann married Adele, who was 31 years younger than him.
Adele was the widow of Johann's acquaintance, just 21 years old, a banker's daughter with excellent upbringing. Johann fell for her at first sight, and Adele, widowed with a young daughter, felt deeply lonely. She gratefully accepted Johann's care and affection. If his first wife was Johann's manager, Adele was the upgraded supermanager. She managed all complex aspects of Johann's work, even copyright matters, freeing him to focus on composition. In his later years, Johann composed daily, collaborating with various librettists to create 16 operettas, remarkable diligence. Though operetta after operetta was produced, none surpassed his earlier masterpiece, Die Fledermaus. The quality and impact varied greatly. Some suffered from poor lyrics, clumsy scripts, or weak performances. His final works went unrecognized, plunging the lifelong success into helpless despair. In his last decades, Johann spent much time at his countryside villa. He feared aging, dyeing his hair and beard jet black upon spotting his first gray strand. He feared failure when plays received lukewarm responses, He'd despairingly conclude he'd lost his creative ability and resigned to fate. He also feared illness. In his final 15 years, plagued by neuralgia, pneumonia, and gout, he frequented hot springs for treatment. His energy sharply declined. After 70, the once celebrated maestro could no longer conduct in theaters. He spoke of wanting suicide, yet remained terrified of death. Psychoanalysts noted Johann's pathological fears, suggesting they might have fueled his compositions. On May 22, 1899, long absent from stages, Johann conducted at the court opera for a charity concert to build a nursing home, performing his early success, Die Fledermaus. But exhausted, he only conducted the overture before retiring. His final performance. That evening, he caught a cold, which developed into pneumonia. A week later, on June 3rd, young Johann passed away at 73. Looking back at Johann Strauss II's life, he was undoubtedly very fortunate. He never experienced Beethoven's career turbulence, tormented by fate and illness, nor could he comprehend Rembrandt's midlife failures and depressed demise. Though his father's affair brought childhood hardship, his debut at 19 brought overnight fame that lasted. His father's reputation and influence paved his way to some extent. His life was free from want, always cherished by nobles and commoners alike. Yet his smooth life fostered a cowardly, evasive nature unable to accept failure or death. He lived diligently and prolifically, composing nearly 500 works, each snapped up immediately, enjoying fame and fortune without financial worry. He revolutionized waltz structure and popularized Viennese waltzes globally. Remember, waltzes were originally Austrian folk dance accompaniments, with overtures nearly signaling partners to dance. But Strauss's waltzes resembled symphonies, independent art forms beyond dance. From their overtures, his waltzes unfolded like symphonic canvases, full of free expression. Some critics fault Strauss's works for lacking profound life reflections, but most believe they capture Austrians' life-loving spirit, despite thematic simplicity. Rooted in Austrian folk and Viennese popular music, they're rare artistic treasures of immense aesthetic value. After today's exploration, do you understand Johann Strauss II better? Did any mentioned music resonate with you? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Well, that concludes our journey through the King of Waltz, Johann Strauss biography. Reading notes are below the audio. Until next time,